You are now listening to an episode of Hidden Voices, so sit back, relax, and enjoy our community podcast. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Hidden Voices. I'm your host Samir. Today we will be talking about employment in our second episode of this second season, focused on the theme of life. In this episode of employment, we'll be discovering different aspects. And today with me co-hosting is Kaled. Kaled, say hi.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, doing good. How about you?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. And today with us as well in the conversation is Hal, Farah, and Miriam. Just before we start off with the conversation, we're just going to go round table and ask everyone what they do for a living, as well as what their earliest memory is of what they wanted to be when they were younger. So we'll start off with Hal.
Hey Samir.
Hey.
Yeah, so right now, I do I work part-time for UPress on a project that's unfortunately just been paused due to COVID-19, but we're going to pick that back up in September. I also work part-time for a hospice out in southeast London as a fundraiser, and I run a part-time consultancy business as well, supporting small charities with their fundraising strategy and wider kind of planning and strategy. And then earliest memory of kind of what I wanted to do was interesting. I was looking back at this and kind of thinking, I don't actually know in many ways, because I think I would have been interested in any kind of sport, and being probably professional football is the one that I thought about from a young age, but I don't think I ever believed I could do that. I think that was more of just a nice idea for something I might like to do, and I could see myself kind of loving training and just playing football, playing any sport really. But I wasn't very ambitious at all as a kid. I think it wasn't until I was like 18, 19 that I really started to have some kind of serious ambitions.
All right, awesome. Let's talk to Miriam. Miriam, how you doing?
Hi Samir, thanks for having me. Really excited to be part of the podcast today. I've been thinking about a lot of the things you've been talking about in terms of the employment. And just before I start, I have to tell you that I've got my baby nephew next to me who's trying to sleep. So if he does get a bit cranky, I apologise, but
Not to worry.
He's doing his thing at the moment, so he's fine. So in terms of my introduction, at the moment I'm managing a youth centre. Obviously the services are closed at the moment, and we're hoping to restart again, as Hal said, in September. And I also run my own makeup services company, and this kind of looks at themes of inner and outer beauty, from things like soft skills and confidence, and even things like helping you look for a job, which is what today is about, I guess, and also other skills such as confidence building, as well as makeup and the beauty side of things. So in terms of the earliest memory of work experience, I think for me it was when I joined a law firm for 2 weeks in year 11. So the head lawyer was actually a friend of my dad's. So it was learning the value of networking and connections. And actually what I really liked was that it was quite a diverse company. And I think from there, I knew that that's the kind of environment I wanted to be in, where everyone is valued, regardless of background and kind of experience and things like that. So in terms of my experience, I loved working there and being part of a team. It was all kind of new, having meetings and briefings and line management and that sort of thing. And I remember just really enjoying dressing up and speaking more formally even, and being in that kind of environment. I loved being around other adults, and it was my first time commuting to central London. So I didn't see too many people that looked like me kind of on the tubes and the buses and things. But when I got into the place of work, it was a bit different. And so I liked kind of seeing the real world outside of school. And I just remember that I wanted it to be longer than the 2 weeks. And also that the best part was learning about sort of colleague and client and other professional relationships. So I think that's what I took out of the whole experience.
Amazing. Moving on to Farah. Farah, if you could please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Farah. I am the director and founder of UPress, and I guess my work involves really like what I love to do, which is the creative arts, storytelling, and really making a difference in society and helping people as well. So I guess to answer your question, I was trying to think back while Hal and Miriam were talking, like, what's my earliest experience of, work and experience. I think just like you guys in school, my first experience was in an office environment where I was just making tea and coffee and filing files. This is, before smartphones and so forth. But I remember I hated it and I just really didn't really like connect with it. And I didn't really understand what I was learning to make tea or coffee, which I could do at home. But I guess, at that age, they didn't want to give you too much responsibility. But yeah, looking back and reflecting back on it, I think at that age, 13, 14, I didn't really have an idea what I wanted to do. But I knew I loved stories and I knew there was some aspect to it that I find, but I wasn't sure what that would look like in the future. So it's interesting to reflect back and see as well.
Right, and finally, Kaled, our co-host, tell us about your earliest memory of work experience, either work experience or early ambitions when you were younger.
I guess like what Farah said, earliest memory for me is probably back in high school doing work experience. I remember back in year 10, around 14, 15 years old, there was a long list of different type of jobs you could pick for 2 weeks. And one of them was Muslim Aid, a charity based in Whitechapel. And it was kind of a nervous experience, I guess, because this is the first time I actually left my area of living all the way, travel across the city. I live in Northwest, so I had to travel all the way to East London. And first time using a train system, traveling from one place to another by myself and consistently. And when I first got there, the charity it seemed like it was kind of like a mess because they were not expecting me to work there. Probably because there was the last second they jotted down as a possible applicant to accept students for work experience. When I went there, everyone was accepting and caring, and I really enjoyed my time there. But I guess the worst experience I had over there was like a room full of promotional stuff like leaflets, stickers, and basically the whole room full of it. So I had spent 2-3 days organizing, and it was taking a really long time. But apart from that, I learned a lot of skills, and that's one of the reasons why I decided to go into the charity sector.
Nice. So I guess for myself then, my earliest memory of work experience, probably at the same time, me and Kaled went to the same school, so work experience was probably 13, 14 years old. Initially, what I applied for before the 2 weeks was to do something in like engineering or something like that, but unfortunately there was no firms that supplied any like engineering work, so kind of went into like clearing, and we had this teacher called Mr. Idris. So for all the guys who didn't like secure any work experience, we'd have to go into his office and he'd just search online for different firms that were hiring. And I basically took the first one that came on that list, and it was just a 2-week sort of work experience at Swiss Cottage in Boots. It was a job of being like a sales assistant. And so it involved just like talking to different customers and like restocking the shelves and whatnot. Based on what you said earlier about your worst experience as well, I'd say like, even though like everyone was like amazing over there, I really got to connect with everyone, especially like the manager as well. Usually I think it would be proper intimidating to talk to like a store manager or something, but he was like pretty chill. But the worst experience that I probably had over there, I was stocking up like near like the toothpaste section or something like that, and some like elderly customer came up to me and asked me about a specific like toothpaste, whether it was in stock. I told her like I would check, but she ended up scolding me. So yeah, I got a little bit upset, but luckily one of the other sales advisors came and helped me out. And so, yeah, for a long time, I really, really disliked talking to like cranky customers, especially older ones who like didn't like immediately got angry if I didn't know like a specific item or something was available. So yeah. But speaking about experiences that like you disliked or hate, are there any other examples that you guys could think of?
Yeah. I would say for me, actually, just going back to your question as well, I was just thinking about what you guys were saying as well. Do you guys remember like when you're young and you get your first work experience and how excited you are? You're gonna be getting a taste out of your first job. I remember for me, like I was just really excited to put on a smart suit that was in a school uniform for the first time and a tie and really like look forward to it. I remember waking up early, ironing my clothes and getting ready. I just loved that aspect. And I remember that I really looked forward. I was just really excited. Other than obviously the job itself being just making tea and coffee and filing stuff, that initial excitement I can't forget. But how about you guys? Do you guys remember anything like that?
I remember kind of it's interesting when Kaled said about his kind of first experience. I can't remember like the exact examples, but I feel like there's been lots of times where I've been like kind of nervous because I wanted to impress and I wanted to do well, and you want to kind of get off on the right foot, and you get there and it's almost like you've got the best attitude, or like you've got the best approach, because everybody else is like, say if you've gone to a workplace where it's very casual or it's very kind of disorganized, or things aren't maybe happening the way they should, and if you arrive and you're kind of like on time, you might be the earliest person there despite the fact that it's like your first day. And yeah, I feel like there were probably lots of examples of things like that where I think because you want to impress and you turn up and you're keen on the first day, and then it's like, oh, actually the bar kind of isn't that high always.
Yeah, so for me, I guess probably the most exciting part was, even though I was like a little bit nervous during the interview stage, just to be in that environment for the first time and having that experience of going in for the interview at the scheduled, like I think it was pretty early in the morning, probably half an hour after the store opened. And so I went with my mum to the store, and I was taken to a small room with the manager, had a really quick conversation with him. Even though, like I said, I was pretty nervous, but at the end of the day, yeah, I did get the work experience. I did get accepted for the work experience, and he ended up shaking my hand at the end of the interview. And so that was probably the highlight of my day that day, because I always seen like stereotypically whenever there's interviews on like TV shows or like Hollywood movies, and like you're sealing the deal when you get the handshake in it. So that was like off my checklist for me. So that was a good highlight for me, as well as in general that year was a pretty good year. I think it was back in like 2012 or 2011, and I think it was probably like a World Cup year or something like that in football or cricket. And so we would be like chatting in between like shifts about like different matches and stuff like that. So it was a pretty good conversation going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, I agree with Samir, especially the point where shaking hands when you're a young kid. I remember when I went to my work experience, I brought my parents along with me. Back then I was a minor. I didn't know everything I learned from interviews, I learned from TV. And you see how, there's like a line of like 3 or 4 people across the table and you're by yourself. They'll be asking you questions to try. I always figured they may try and ask you a trick question. But with my interview, the person hiring me was really relaxed, really cool. Like I said earlier, he was kind of confused because I guess it's an international charity. So I don't think they look at this specific things. So they just basically said, okay, we have your name, come back on Monday morning. And I think best experience was probably me going by myself underground across the city, going to different places. And I remember going to the specific chicken shop because it's the first time I got some money I could spend wherever I want. So I kept on going to the specific chicken shop every single day. And the guy practically recognized me to the point where he said, "Oh, you love my chicken that much? You come to me all the time." I said, "Yes, I do," and I really did enjoy that freedom, I guess. But yeah, I'm glad I went through the work experience. So how about you, Miriam? What was your best work experience when you was young?
In terms of my work experience, I think the best was probably being paid for it, because in terms of the school one, we weren't allowed to receive remuneration, but I was getting money here and there for travel and expenses and food, and this was all new to me. So I really loved that aspect of it, and it just felt really good to come home after a productive day and feel that different kind of tiredness that was different from coming home from school, for example. And in terms of the worst one, I think it's similar to what Farah was saying. I don't think I made that much tea and coffee, but I was asked to do some filing. And after the first day, when it was new, it just got really boring and really old fast. So I think that was probably the worst bit.
I bet you make a good cup of tea now as a result of it, right? And good coffee, like me.
Honestly, I make them bad on purpose because then no one asks me to make it. So that's a tip for all you listeners out there.
Yes.
That's a good strategy.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Nobody
Definitely.
asks me to make it anymore.
I love that.
Do you guys think younger people should have more work experience with more responsibility than what we have or what we did have?
I think yes. I think there should be a little bit more trust with young people, and also if you want them to get an idea of like the working environment and what it entails, you should definitely give more experience. And like I was working, like my work experience was in property. By the end of it, all I knew was like how to make tea and coffee, as a 13-year-old that didn't drink coffee or anything like that, and how to file properly in alphabetical order. But in terms of real estate and sales and so forth, I wasn't given that responsibility, and it's a shame because that would have probably, maybe, guide me in a different path in terms of the choices and career I would have chosen. But yeah, so I do think, there's not a lot of trust and a lot of responsibility given to young people. And I think partly maybe it's to do with capacity and maybe the level of work itself as well involved.
I think for me it was a bit different in terms of, because it was a law firm, I was allowed to go along with the lawyers to court. So I went to the House of Commons and the House of Lords, and as a 16-year-old that was a huge experience, and it was just really nice to be around that environment and just see what it's like inside a courtroom. That was quite an eye-opener for me, and I found it quite useful. And just going back to your question about should young people have this opportunity, more now? Well, in response to that, I found it very useful personally, and sadly it's something that doesn't exist in school anymore in the way that it used to. Work experience, I think, happens a little bit younger maybe, so year 10, because year 11 is obviously GCSE year. For us, we did it in the first 2 weeks when we came back after the summer holiday, so it was sort of a mid to end of September. And I understand the pressure that schools are under, but I also think that if you don't give them the work experience, it's difficult for them to then go on to their post-16 destinations without this. So it's something that I would recommend. And also, I think we don't have the same sort of careers advice service that we used to before. We had Connections and all these other amazing organisations that you could kind of turn to for help with things like CVs and interviews and tips and things like that. Whereas if you do cut those kind of essential services, as far as I'm concerned, then you're going to see the impact of that later on.
I totally agree. Speaking on career advice services, how effective do you guys think the whole career advice services were in school?
For me, I remember back in the year 7 or year 8, basically our head of year, Mr. Toms, he interviewed me and discussing my career paths. At the time, I wanted to become a doctor, and then he challenged me, asking me, why do you want to become a doctor? At the time, it was most likely it was because my parents told me you should become a doctor, but I didn't really, my heart was not in it. So he kept on challenging me, and I told him there's a lot of sick people in the world, and he said, okay, why don't you become something else, like a lawyer? That way you can, challenge help them in court and get them more money and so on. And I said, that is possible, but I still want to become a doctor. And he challenged me again, asking me, why do you become a charity worker? Because you can help people who are not sick, but who need help. I said, okay, maybe. And then since then, that specific interview I had back in year 7, year 8, it kept lingering in my mind. Not only did it challenge my preconception at the time that I should only become a doctor, and that's the only way I could make my family proud and so on, and help people. There's not only one possible direction in my career, and there's not only the traditional jobs that become a doctor, become a lawyer, become a politician. You could become a healthcare worker, you could become a charity worker, you could become anything that you want that could help people. So I was glad that I did have that interview back then, but I'm not sure if everyone else took that interview seriously, because back then I was really young and not many people did had really forecast of what they want to become when they get older.
I think it's really interesting to say about kind of like forecasting what you want to become when you're older, because that was a big thing for me in terms of kind of who I was getting advice from. And I kind of felt that I still feel that kind of career advice is still really, really useful, and young people should have all the kind of the options made clear to them. But I think there's a degree of it has to kind of be coming from the right people as well. And if it's coming from someone who's not relatable to you at all, then it's difficult to picture yourself getting to that place. But also if it's coming from someone who is in a place where maybe you can't see yourself going, or you don't want to see yourself going. So say if it's coming from somebody who's talking about their career path, but they don't seem all that happy in that career, you're unlikely to move in that way. And it's something I've talked with Farah about before, about kind of like motivation and mentors, and kind of I was fortunate to have lots of great mentors in lots of areas of my life, but I didn't feel like career satisfaction was an area that I really kind of looked up to anybody in. And I've said kind of lots of times I felt that I had lots of people who would complain about the 9 to 5 or about general work, and kind of who weren't positive about work, who didn't kind of seem to love work. And I think while that was the case, I wasn't really taking the advice seriously from people, because I couldn't see myself kind of walking in their footsteps. And so I think that's a big thing for young people, especially, is that there's somebody relatable, but also somebody who's kind of inspiring them, and somebody who they could see themselves doing either the same thing or something similar as.
I would add something to that. In terms of having the right people. So one is, I think you need to have proper funding for these sorts of important services, and secondly, you need to have the right qualified people as well. So when you hear about career services and things, not everybody has a great experience. And I think one thing to note is sometimes girls are discouraged from things like STEM subjects, or taking on things that are not stereotypically true for what they're meant to be doing, if that makes sense. So for example, I was watching something this morning about home renovation, and the woman was really surprised that the young girl didn't want her bedroom in pink. Now this episode is quite old, but still it's just surprising to see that even now with fresh eyes. So I think it's really important that we have the right people telling young people that they can be whatever they want to be, but make it easier for them. So for example, being told maybe you shouldn't be a doctor, maybe you should be a charity worker, I would maybe put that differently and say you could do this and you can also do this, and if you want to do this, these are the ways that you can go about it. So one is about gender, and then the other is about race as well. I've heard other horror stories about people being told they can't be this because of their background, and so that's something we really need to be aware of now as well.
I think just to really quickly say, I think it's really important to get different people, isn't it? Different people, different perspectives, so that individual as a whole gets a different experience of what life could be for in that background, and they start to see all of the different ways that they could potentially go. But having different perspectives, I think, is massive in that career guidance, because you just don't know who feels whatever way they do in that audience.
Yeah, I agree as well, because I was thinking about this, and I think we spoke about this as well, how who are your, we asked this question as well when we did a session with recent graduates. We asked them who are your career role models, and in some cases it was a difficult question to ask. And and answer as well. So if you think about it, like early on in school, our role models, our career role models, are teachers. Some of the times the teachers are miserable, they don't really enjoy their work. The career services or the career coordinators, if for me, it felt like they were just ticking another tick box. And then we have our parents and community. And unfortunately, I speak from my experience, like most of my family members and friends and community members that I came across, they never seemed to really fully enjoy their job. It always felt like it was a means to an end, either to pay the bills, to support their family. So that kind of, in a way, shapes like what kind of career choices you want. And then obviously come from being a first generation migrants to this country. My parents wanted me to take the conventional ways, like be a doctor, be a lawyer, much more stable and so forth. But for me, I didn't know any doctors. I didn't know any lawyers. So therefore, I didn't have a point of reference. I didn't know if they enjoyed their job, if it brought fulfillment. It was only until later on in stages. I find it quite interesting as well. Do you guys remember your early, I guess, career role models that maybe in a way influenced your choices and the choices that you've taken forward up to this point?
I think what you said earlier about teachers being role models is really important, because the first job I remember wanting to do at age probably 5 or 6 was to be a teacher like mine. She was really kind, she was smart, she knew what she was doing, and she had really great leadership skills, so much so that I still remember her fondly today. And I'm now a teacher as well. So I think we can't underestimate the impact and the power that people can have around you, negative or positive, really. And so I think that's really important. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that I either wanted to be a teacher or an interior decorator, interior designer, which are kind of different ends of the spectrum. But
Wow.
now I'm teaching online
Mm-hmm.
and I'm also renovating my house, on a personal project. But still, the things that you're interested in when you're young can lead to, future development in it, later on. So I think that's really important to mention. And then there was something else as well. I'm not sure if I can remember now. So I might have to come back to it. But yeah, that's what I wanted to say, that actually teaching and interior design, and now I'm able to still do those because of the inspiration and the kind of memories I had from being younger.
For me, probably one of my primary role models in high school was my English teacher, Mr. Casey. When I was younger, I wasn't really good at English. My English skills were lacking in terms of communicating verbally as well as reading and writing. I had a few learning difficulties, and so that had a huge impact on not only my grades but how I communicated socially with different people. And so before, what happened was, I think I probably did good in year 7 in terms of getting into the top set of English, but just before GCSEs I got put down to second set. For me, for a while that was a bit depressing, because I had to tell my mum and dad that I went down from first set, and so it was a little bit sad for me, but it was something that I accepted. And because I used to get like really, really bad grades in English, I was averaging about like D's and E's. But as soon as I came into like Mr. Casey's class, yeah, he really changed the way I looked at English as a subject in general. I think I remember probably in year 10 having some of the worst grades in English, but there was a controlled assessment coming up for creative writing. And I was really bad at creative writing, so I didn't know what to do. But Mr. Casey explained that I should just take my time when writing something, make sure I plan a story out, make sure I write the story step by step, and make sure like there's a real progression in it. Even though like the story was like 3 to 4 written A4 pages, I really decided then and there that I needed to think out what I was going to do. So the theme for the assessment was like being trapped, and the objective was like to write the assessment all in present tense. And so I remember creating this story about being trapped in like some scenario, and I ended up getting an A for that subject. And so that just really clicked in my head. Like, wow, I think I could probably do something in creative writing in English. And so it wasn't until like I was 16 years old that I really thought to myself, like, English or writing is a career that I could get into. And so from then, that's when I like started wanting to be in creative writing or journalism. So yeah, I'd probably thank Mr. Casey for that. So anyone else have any like role models that they could look up to in terms of fueling their career path?
I was just going to really quickly say, I thought it's massive, isn't it, how much kind of one person taking time and being patient with you as an individual can actually do. And I'm sure Miriam will have kind of other thoughts on this as well as a teacher, but I've always thought if teachers could, if they had the support and resources to be, and maybe in some senses kind of smaller class, I know it's one of the big kind of problems with being patient and kind of working with each individual really closely, is that you've got a massive classroom to kind of to control and move in one direction. But I think it's massive when you see somebody who just needs that bit of patience in whatever area, because we all have weaknesses, don't we? And whatever area it is you need help with or support with, how kind of far that can go. But I think, and it's sad maybe how many opportunities are lost in not necessarily teachers. Some teachers maybe aren't putting the effort in together, but I think it's more often probably just its capacity and the ability to do that for everybody in that class. It's sad if those opportunities are missed.
I completely agree with Hal. For me, when I was young, I always saw teachers as aliens in a way that they had the same authority as my parents. So I never really thought of taking teachers as teaching as a career aspect. I had terrible teachers over the years. It's not that because I was a bad child, probably because they didn't really care, I guess. That's what I thought at the time. And now knowing that, teachers have their own lives, they have their own families, the job it's overloaded, and it's not their fault. It's due to budget cuts, due to big classrooms, due to the fact that there's so many students. I remember teachers used to focus on, always on the bad children, children who disrupt the class. So to focus more on them. I wasn't one of those students, so didn't really care. I never really had a role model to say, to really affect the way my life went. And in terms of career-wise, there wasn't really. My family is similar to Farah, I guess. My family came over to this country. I'm like the, I guess, second generation or first generation of East African family here. So there wasn't really, diverse career options I had to look at to. My dad is a carpenter. My mom was a housewife. My uncles and aunties were either cleaners or either taxi drivers or, jobs that you wouldn't see high-paying, middle-class people have. So I think that's another problem I had growing up. I never really saw all the different options there were in terms of career-wise. I always thought, the traditional, conventional jobs, like become a doctor, a lawyer, a politician or teacher. I thought those were all the options you had. And that really governed most of my high school life and the choices I picked in A-levels, which I picked biology, chemistry, math, and so on, which I really hated and I really struggled. But it all changed when I went to university, when I realized there was dozens and dozens of different options. And I find it really incredible, like those courses based on things I will never, ever expect. And the choices was incredible and it really overwhelmed me. So I picked a random choice at the time. It wasn't random, but when I realized that I couldn't do medicine, I picked international politics, and that really broadened my view. And I guess that's in terms of role model. I guess university was really, really had a massive impact of how I am now, and I'm glad that I decided to choose international politics, because not only did I enjoy that subject, it also allowed me to see more of other options I had, and which is the reason why I decided to start working for UPress. And that's one of the reasons why I want to go into the charity sector.
I think it's really interesting from a like when you talk about that, because the journey sounds kind of similar in terms of like not necessarily having, and like I can't, like I have to say I'm really grateful for the role models I do have in my life, but not having kind of like a career role model was definitely challenging. And I think at the same as you, kind of Kaled, with when I got to university, that's when I kind of really started to kind of figure out what I wanted to do, and I was much happier with lots of areas of kind of my life and with career side of things. And just listening to it now, it kind of like I was thinking maybe I slightly, and it's going to sound really cheesy, but maybe I slightly became my own kind of role model in terms of saying I knew the thing I wanted to get towards was just being happy and enjoying work, and I wanted to work in a job, a career where I was happy, where I felt like I was working late. I wouldn't even notice it because I was just happy doing that. And I didn't see anybody who was like that. I only kind of, like I said before, only kind of heard about the negative sides of work. And maybe in that sense, we kind of became our own role models in terms of saying, okay, well, haven't seen anyone do it, but let's see if we can do it ourselves.
I think that's actually a really good example of how you can go out there looking for role models in terms of your career and the choices that you want to make, but in some cases, you don't have the capacity or the connection, so you become your own role model. And going back to this as well, I guess in a way, growing up, the other thing as well, I think for me that I noticed that wasn't discussed was like money and career fulfillment. Because a lot of the time, our parents want us to get the doctor's job, the lawyer's job, the one that's paying a lot of money, but they don't realize, does a person enjoy that job? Is that something that, they're excited about? Is it more than just money and the wages that come through? So I think even for me, I had to find out the hard way. Either I could chase the money and be very unhappy, and have a less, fulfilling work, or I could create the own paths and explore new ways of either, making a living, but at the same time doing the things that I love. And then in doing that, and I think for just thinking about it now, what you said, Hal, as well, it automatically and consciously you become your own role model. You start to create your own path. And I thought it was quite interesting. I think Miriam, you've done that as well. I've seen in your entrepreneurship as well. Not only are you a teacher, but you also do your side hustle, cake-based makeup. You also do consultations and training. Yeah, so I'd be interested to hear your thoughts as well, like how you navigate through that and how you're able to, I guess, make those choices and become, in a way, your own role model as well.
Thanks, Farah. It's a really useful question and quite an interesting one. I always kind of pause when people ask that question, what do you do? Because I do so many different jobs and sometimes it's hard to kind of keep track. But as Hal said, it's that thing of you don't feel it if you're really enjoying what you're doing, because then it's your passion. It's not really work. Work itself has quite a negative connotation because it assumes that you're doing something really quite hard. But when it's something that you love, then obviously you could do it forever, really. So in terms of some of the jobs, I obviously said that I teach. At the moment, it's online. Makeup stuff I've had to stop, but in terms of the workshops and things, they're continuing. But I also manage a youth centre. I work in an academy part-time as student services manager. So my whole thing is about solving problems, whether it's through art and beauty or education. They're all kind of linked together. I'm really passionate about young people and working with different community groups. I do a lot of voluntary work as well. And so it sounds a bit crazy, but because everything is kind of part-time and quite linked together, to me, it feels quite seamless at least. And I think it's just about managing that time, managing your expectations and knowing what you're capable of. I know that if I was in the same job 9 to 5, I'd be really bored. So it's about, I think the financial side of it is really important because you have to live. And in London, it is so expensive. And I don't think it's going to get easier for a long while yet. And so you have to find ways to earn money, get a good income, but also enjoy what you do. So it's definitely a tall order. But, I'm in my 30s now. I've had time to kind of process and develop and experience different work environments and set the standard that I want to achieve. So if I was to recommend it to anybody else, I'd say you have to know what you want. You have to try different things. And you always, always, always have to do something that scares you. Otherwise, you can't move forward.
I think it's a really interesting example because essentially I suppose what we're talking about is portfolio careers, aren't we? The idea that you could do not just one job, one bit of income, but lots of different things. And that's a great example of something that probably, I don't know how many kids would know about that, would know that lots of people that people do that, and that still the emphasis is on that kind of one, as you said, I think it's Kaled said, or perhaps I think it's Farah actually said, kind of like stable, what your parents want is that stable 9 to 5 safe income, that kind of thing. And actually I've gone down the kind of portfolio career route where I'm able to do different things, and I'm really grateful for that because that keeps me motivated in every other area. But I was kind of just going down that route, and I was talking to somebody about that, and they kind of said, oh, similarly, they said, what do you do? And I was kind of saying, oh, I do this and a bit of that and a bit of this. And they're going, oh, okay, so you have a portfolio career. And I had no idea that there was even like a definition for that. But you only learn those things by somebody either doing your own research or somebody kind of telling you those things. And I think that'd be massive if more young people knew that was a viable option, that they don't have to rely on one income stream, that or that they don't have to put everything they do into one area. You can kind of spread it out across. I think it's a good example of some of that stuff, maybe because it's more difficult, because it's not the norm, it's maybe more challenging in some ways, that it's not the thing that is so often told to children, young people. They're not often made kind of aware of things like that, even if it's more challenging, but maybe more rewarding in some ways.
Just to jump in again, Hal, I appreciate what you've said because it really resonates. The main thing I'd add on to what I said earlier is that you really have to know what your values in life are. And UPress is really big on this because it's always the first thing that we do in our sessions. And that's to think about sort of the group mission and aim and what kind of ties us together. And it's the same thing we can do in ourselves in terms of work, because if you know what your values are and what your mission is, let's say, for example, it's to make the world a better place, which is what kind of brings UPress together, then you know when other job opportunities come to you, you can see whether you can check in with yourself and see whether these are in alignment with your values and what you want to do moving forward.
I've got one question for all you guys. In terms of your career so far, what is the most valuable skill that you've taken on?
I think for me, the most valuable skill has been of communication. And with part of that is socializing and networking, because as Farah said earlier, everyone has a story and stories are what brings people together. And so if you're able to share your own story and listen to others, then you can make those connections between them and move forward together. So it's really important to be able to do that. And so through my work, I think from speaking to different children and families and young people and, women, it's just been really exciting. And I guess that's what's driving me forward, just this desire to listen to even more stories and connect more people together.
For me, I guess, is confidence and overcoming my fears. In terms of confidence, I really lacked confidence when I was in high school and when I was younger. And then I guess over time and, going to interviews, seeing new people, talking to other people and so on, my confidence built up, and I guess I'm more confident now than I was before. But I still do believe I'm still a long way to go to be more confident. In terms of fear, I know this sounds kind of stupid, but one of my biggest fears was, getting a dead-end job, 9 to 5, first of my life. I'll be like 60, 70 years old. That's when, when you retire and then you have, I don't know, X amount of years until you live, and that's it. And my life will, at the end, just come to, me, instead of focusing on what I wanted to do, I just wanted, stability. I just want stability and just, get my paycheck on the day and just go home, go to work, go home, go to work, go home. And this cycle, that's I've seen so many times, and in real life and also on TV when I was young, about how people just work to live instead of living, and making work instead of living the life and enjoying it. So I guess overcoming that fear, like how everyone here have like massive portfolios, I guess that's what I need to build on. And hopefully I do enjoy whatever I choose to do in the future.
Brilliant. I think, thank you, Kaled. And I think, for me as well, just reflecting back and it links to Miriam's as well, Miriam's and what you just said as well. I think for me, it's really like, I think Samir, you probably noticed this as well, is like, I listen very carefully and I've picked up the skill to basically process information very quickly and come up with ideas, which is good, but not, it's a lot of the good ideas and a lot of things that we've done so far has been through just really listening to the community, listening to our partners. And I think that is probably one of the most valuable skills that I've picked up over the years, from school days up to this point. And it's something that I definitely encourage, it links with communication, all aspects of communication and storytelling. And linking back to what I said earlier as well, like in order to really tell a good story, you got to be able to listen as well. It's part of the whole process of human interaction.
I was just thinking, like, I actually kind of like, I've slightly forgot the questions. I was so interested. All of those answers are really, 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 really interesting. And I think it's particularly, I know when Kaled's talking about kind of that very real fear of kind of like, of ending up not being happy because you're doing something that, and like the majority, to me it was always that idea of like the majority of your life you're doing something that doesn't make you happy, or it's just that repeat cycle of kind of, like you say, go to work, get up, and not enjoying it and not being happy was, that was a very, very kind of real fear for me. And I think tying into that, the biggest thing that I've learned, and kind of I think maybe my biggest strength is kind of an ability to be proactive and a kind of like a proactive mindset, where I think for a good 18, 19 years, I just kind of waited for things to happen and for things to get better. And I waited to feel the way that I do about work now. And I was just kind of waiting for that to happen. And I gradually started kind of being more proactive and saying, well, actually, I'm not going to wait for this. I'm going to go and get it. And if somebody says no, I'm going to try a different way. And we're going to, just be kind of persistent with, if I really wanted something, just within reason, being kind of persistent with that. And that's been the biggest thing that I think has helped me get to where I am now, is that I've been proactive with stuff. And I think anyone who wants anything and they're kind of serious about that should follow that too. I think things don't just come to you.
Yeah, for me, I think a valuable skill that I've learned over the years is also what Kaled said, was confidence. Even though there is a few more steps I need to do in order to gain full confidence, especially when communicating to people. But I think, in high school I had the same problem like Kaled. I had really lacked in confidence, but it wasn't until sixth form and university that I really tried to just step into different conversations and try and get what I want. There's that saying, if you don't ask what you want, you're not going to get. And for me, that was the case almost all the time until getting into university, where everyone's very, very sociable, and you get into different like societies and whatnot in the campus, and so it's required for you to just really communicate with others. And I think probably being in a society as like one of like an executive member, communication was always important, whether it was with the student union or whether it was with other university students and societies as well. And so over the years I've tried to adapt the way I communicate to people. Now that I'm at UPress, I've been given different opportunities to go into networking sessions or get into meetings with other organizations that we might be working with on a new project, and also meeting a lot of different people that UPress have worked with in the past. And so that's helped me ease into being more confident and being able to communicate with different people. And in general, just communicating with people helps you know a lot more about other people and what they go through. And so as a journalist, and more importantly as a writer, if you want to develop your ideas and whatnot, you need to listen to other stories and anecdotes that people have to tell you. That way you could be able to mold your ideas even better and just really improve in terms of your conversational skills.
Thank you, Samir. That was amazing. And I think it's a lot to think about, and I'm trying to think as well. Like one of the aspects, if you could give an advice to your younger self, like early days, like and also if you're talking to a young person right now, like still figuring out what career they want to pursue, what they want to do in the future, what advice would you give them? For me, linking to what I said earlier, it would be really just not being afraid to ask for help and being able to listen carefully to see what's out there. But yeah, the first step is always, I say, is asking for help, asking for guidance and assistance. But yeah, be interested to hear your thoughts as well. What advice would you give? Like now we've reflected quite a lot back on our younger days and the choices that we made in the career path that we've taken, as well as the lessons that we've learned. But yeah, it'd be interested to hear what advice you'd give to a young person that's still figuring it out at early stages.
I think one piece of advice I would give is to diversify your experiences. Even though it seems like a long time in high school, there isn't a lot of time in hand. But because you have, to an extent, a lot of freedom compared to when you're actually in the world of employment, you have a lot of summers and breaks that are free for you to actually go and get some valuable experiences. Whether or not you get paid, that's something else completely. When I was younger, obviously you didn't get paid when you were doing any like volunteering or anything like that. But you shouldn't go into that mindset. You should always, whenever you're volunteering for an organization, you should always go for the valuable skills as something that you take out of it. So the advice I would give would be probably like if you have your summer holidays, set at least maybe a month or 2 weeks every summer holiday just for work experience. And I think if you diversify your portfolio at such a young age, you'll be able to, whenever you're in any like interviews or building your CV, your portfolio, you'll be able to put that valuable information in, as well as learn all these like different skills that we've been talking about at an earlier age. And so when the time comes and you're in that seat for the interview for what career you wanted to go in, you'll be able to know what you're talking about. It would be much more easier to get the positions that you want to be in based on the experience that you have earlier on in life.
So I agree with a lot of what Samir said and what's been said already. And I would, completely add my support to the fact that you need to network and socialize. I would also say get as many mentors as possible. I don't think you just need to have one. I have several for different areas of my life. Obviously, I have different types of jobs as well. And so it's just really useful to have that kind of expertise at my fingertips where I can just call on for help. So that's a really important one. The other one I would add as a note to myself before anyone else, and that's to keep updating your CV as you go along. So it's really easy to kind of say, I'll do that later. And then suddenly you're 3 jobs behind and you want to apply for a new job, and now you've got more work to do. So as soon as you get the new role, update your CV as you go along, and that will save you time in the long run. Also, as Samir said, definitely volunteer, try different things. I would also say create a physical portfolio. I know things are online now, and that's definitely really valid. But sometimes, things don't work, the Wi-Fi is not working, or, you don't have data or something, and you don't want to look sloppy in an interview. So just having that foresight and being organized enough to have a physical copy can sometimes give you that edge over the other kind of, I want to say contestant, because it's a bit like a game show, isn't it? And I'd also say try and have an online presence if possible. So obviously you work on your interview skills and things, but maybe practice some with your friends, family, and also look at your own social media accounts. Are they public? If so, what are you trying to put out there? What are the key messages that people are going to get from you? And this all sounds really overwhelming, but I think I didn't have any of that information when I was, 16, 17, 18. And if I had, maybe things would have worked out differently. So I always think it's really important to pass on this kind of knowledge, because the world of work is changing all the time. The advice that I would have got or received 15 years ago is completely different to what I'm saying now. And really, my final point is just to be as creative as possible. If you've got employers that are looking at the same CVs over and over again, and you've got people that are more experienced than you are, you need to think about your own unique selling point. What is it that makes you different and helps you stand out from the crowd? So you might want to have a different layout to your CV, or, show some of the work that you're doing and showcase all your amazing skills, because that's really what's going to help you in the long run. Thanks.
I wish I had that when I was young. All this advice from everyone here. For me, I guess I've one. I guess it's cliche, but I guess you heard this like a million times. Never let failure define who you are, and use that experience to grow. There's gonna be so many times that you'll feel like you failed yourself, or you failed someone, or you think this failure could be the end of you. Don't let that overwhelm you in a way that define who you are. If you could overcome that, you'll grow as a person, and you'll see more in life than beforehand. I guess what I'm trying to say is that you have to go experience it in order to understand how it feels. Like, someone could tell you what failure feels like. It feels like you're disappointed. You're angry at yourself. You think you could have done better, and so on and so forth. But I do think the best way to experience it is to experience it yourself. So, one, if you ever do feel like you failed yourself, just look back at it as a lesson to teach yourself, learn from your mistakes, and continue moving forward. Because no one is perfect, and we will basically stumble across the way, but we should never let that stumble be the end of the road for us. So just continue moving forward.
I'm going to jump in again just quickly, because there's a statistic that we need to be aware of, and that's that when women have 80% of the job spec fulfilled, but not the 20%, it puts them off from applying for the job. But it's found that men, if they have 20% of the job spec, they still go ahead and apply, even though they've got 80% of the skills missing. So this could be part of the reason why men tend to get those higher positions, and women lack the confidence and the kind of, the attention needed to just go for it, and the boldness. So I always encourage women to try and just do your best and go for it, because you never know. And I've always found that by taking risks and by being fearless, that's what's got me to where I am today. And it is scary, it is terrifying, but actually when it pays off, it's the best feeling. And so I would encourage everyone to apply for any job that they think they could do. Even if you're not quite sure, just do it, because you never know.
I think massively agree with that. And I didn't personally believe I'm obviously not a woman, but I felt in that kind of that place where I would look at job descriptions. I actually looked at them when I was a young person and thought, it doesn't look like any job works for me, because I don't see how I could have the years of experience or tick all of those boxes. And if I have ticked all those boxes, it just felt like a weird concept. And I'm so anti so many job descriptions. In some ways, I think that job descriptions can be incredibly and application specs can be so kind of lazy in some respects, and can discourage people from applying. And 100% agree with your point, Miriam. And it wasn't until I actually started talking to recruiters, and they started. I remember I had a really interesting conversation with a recruiter where she said to me, I said, I just want to be really upfront. I don't have that, like points 1, 2, and 3. I don't have those things. Is it worth me applying? And she said, she said, I've just spoken to them on the phone earlier today, and they're actually not really that bothered about those things. Like, it's kind of nice if someone has them. It's like, but they're put down as essential. Why are they? And that was, 100% agree. I think if you just go for it, you've got nothing to lose. Go for it. And I think the one bit of advice I think I'd give to myself, and it comes back to that kind of wanting to be happy and wanting to feel fulfilled with work, is not to settle. There's been times where it's been kind of really, really, really tough, and it's felt like there's lots of barriers, and it's not been clear how I was going to get to where I wanted to get to, but just not settling for something. And only kind of whether you really want something or whether you're not that bothered and you can do something else. But if you really, really want something, not settling, not letting anybody tell you can't have it, and that kind of includes like the voices in you saying, oh, am I good enough, all of those things. And if you want it, then just don't settle until you get there. And that's not about rushing to get there or being impatient. It's just not losing sight of that goal, whatever it is.
Sorry, I just want to add something else quickly, and that's the importance of having things readily available. So first I said to, make sure you've got that hard copy of your portfolio and CV and things like that. But it's equally important to have things accessible on your phones. Most people have smartphones now and things like Google Drive and Dropbox. So I found that having my CV and things ready on Google Drive means it's really easy for me to do one-click applications for different jobs and things. At the moment, obviously, a lot of jobs are online and things, and the competition is fierce. So just being able to apply quickly on your phone here and there has been really useful for me personally. And just to mention that for young people now especially, they are really in a double bind or a catch-22, because you, as Hal said, the job specification says that you need to be experienced and qualified, and how can you have those things unless somebody gives you a chance and takes a chance on you? So the other thing I would add is that when you do get that role, even if it's not something that you ideally see yourself doing in the future, I would say block out time where you can to do other things. So, for example, I took on an admin job while I was doing my master's over a year ago now. And I found it really useful because the work wasn't too difficult. And in between clients or, students and things like that, I was able to actually do my university reading, apply for other things, make sure my own admin was being kept up to date. And actually, I found that really useful because I was able to run my own life alongside this job that was paying the bills and giving me experience. So it's not easy, and you definitely have to kind of be strategic, but it's that part of learning new skills and just being really flexible and adaptable, and hopefully in the end reaching those goals that you're really going for.
Some solid piece of advice from all of you guys. Are there any other aspects of employment that you'd like to discuss?
I think just really quickly, in terms of what Miriam's just said about, I think made a really, really good point about giving young people a chance. And part of that has to come from us as well. I think I was talking to some university students a few months ago, and we were talking about kind of how it feels when you apply or you get in touch with an organization and you ask about experience and no one comes back to you, or and how that kind of feels. And I ended by kind of saying, even if you can't kind of do anything about that situation, when you get into a position where you have the chance to hire somebody who you maybe have to take a risk on because they're a bit younger, or that you have to kind of let someone know that they're not getting the job, but you should give them feedback and actually change the system in that way. I think we all play a part. It's not just about young people trying and kind of keep persevering. It's about us actually, when we grow up, not just kind of falling into the same pattern of, oh, I don't have time to send feedback, or actually it's kind of, I'm going to take the easy option and apply this and employ this person rather than the younger person. And I think it's really, really easy to fall back into that trap of just repeating the same thing and becoming the person that you were kind of angry at 5 years ago. So I think it's really important to break that system. I think we all play a key role in that.
I agree with you completely, Hal, and it's something actually I've kind of like consciously and made an effort to implement with UPress as well. And I've actually seen a benefit of that as well. When you take a risk on someone that has got the drive and a passion to learn and really better themselves, but they just don't have the experience yet. And I've seen the impact it can have, like when we've done that, and like half of our if not 80 or 90% of our workforce and freelancers have come up through our projects and the work that we do. So definitely, I think we all have to take a responsibility in just remembering that what it was like to be at the early stages of your career, still trying to figure out what you want to do. I'll even go even a step further and say with UPress, if any young person is listening and they're still figuring out what they want to do, and they've got a specific skill set, reach out to us, because at the moment we're going to be recruiting and working with freelancers and creatives and artists. So if you are a young person out there or young creative or just a community member that's interested in making a difference, do reach out to us. This is our way of giving back as well. Yeah, those are really good points, Miriam and Hal.
I'm just going to jump in again quickly and say that, yes, I agree. Young people, the best place to start is UPress because it is so open and welcoming and has so many opportunities for young people. It's a really great thing to have on your CV and to meet other people and, like-minded friends, and it sort of becomes a family. And just the other couple of points I wanted to raise. First of all, I'm aware that I'm the only woman in this conversation right now. And so it was really important for me to agree to be part of this, even if it's something new that I haven't done before, really. So it's the same message to other young women and other people out there that may feel, that they're not really part of the group or the conversation. Make your seat at the table because you have to. People are relying on you to do this. And a way that can help you, as I said before, is to have different mentors. But I think it's also equally important to mentor others. So I heard something many years ago at a Deloitte conference, and this was teach as you climb, so lift as you climb. And this is that every time you go up a level, you bring others along with you. So as I'm being mentored, I'm mentoring other young people, and my condition is that you must mentor somebody else. So it's each one teach one, and that to me is really, really key. If you're not able to do that, or even if you are, you really need to create or be part of some sort of peer support group. And this is where you can get access to the expertise of your peers and the people around you. And it's really important to do things like practice your interview skills. I've had situations where I've been a horrible boss, or I've had somebody be really mean in an interview. And because it was so difficult to kind of be put on the spot that way, by the time I got into the real thing, I breezed it because I'd been through the worst already. And it might sound dramatic, but I actually found it really useful, and I've never forgotten that. Coming back to having a seat at the table, we must absolutely pass the mic, and UPress is exemplary for this, and that's why I've been with UPress for so long. And I just love what Farah said earlier about making that conscious effort to include everybody. And also, I think Kaled mentioned earlier about needing to take risks. And finally, I love what Hal said about needing to have a portfolio career, because in this day and age, in the way the world of work is now, this is how we have to be moving forward. Thanks.
I think if nothing else, it's been really, really interesting to listen to all you guys. Thank you for everything everyone's shared. It's been even if I'm sure it will be useful for lots of other people, but even if it's just useful for us, it's been really interesting. So thank you.
Thank you guys for joining us as well today. And it's been really insightful just to hear your experiences and your journey as well. And like Samir said as well at the beginning, and Kaled, that this is our second season of Hidden Voices, and this is the second episode looking at employment. And hopefully we want to do more episodes that cover different topics and different aspects of life. So definitely do reach out to us if you want to get involved in any one of our episodes. But I'm going to pass you on to Samir, our host, and Kaled.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. It will be available on SoundCloud, YouTube, and of course, ScribersHive.com. Remember to tune in to the third episode of Hidden Voices. We'll be discussing about health and well-being with some experts. So yeah, Kaled, do you have anything else to add on?
No, it's a great podcast, really informative, and hopefully, even if one person gets something out of this, I'll be really happy.
Great. Thank you guys for listening, and remember, if you do want to get involved in UPress, please come into communication with us through our website or contact us at upress.org.uk. Thank you guys.